Hello, everybody. Good morning, and welcome to another episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings. I am Brian Emhauser. You are in the right place, even though this is not a live show. If you are trying to comment to me or talk to me directly and wondering why I'm not reacting in this episode, it's because I'm out on a golf course right now, or at least I should be when you're watching this show, probably triple bogeying a hole and wondering why I woke up so early to go and torture myself at a golf course. But that's what I'm doing because guess what? Today is my birthday. I turned 50 today. Can you believe it? I'm sure you can. You're like, I would have guessed 70, but no, I am turning 50 today, the big 50. And my wife just turned 50 a month ago. So we're turning 100 this year. Can you believe it? It's kind of crazy, but got a full day myself. I will be heading to the VMAC for the second and only the last remaining day of mandatory minicamp for the Seahawks later today. Going to fit in 18 holes ahead of time, rush over there, and then watch practice and then talk to Mike Macdonald again, a few players. I do expect to be able to do a player interview tomorrow. And we'll see. You know what? Like I've told you, I've tried to convince the Seahawks we should do something fun tomorrow. I'm turning 50. The Seahawks are in their 50th season. Top 50 players. Like, there's got to be something fun that we could do with that. Don't know if it's going to happen, but make sure you're like and subscribe to the channel because click the little bell to get notified. You never know if something crazy is going to happen when I get to the VMAC. Now, I might say tomorrow time because for me it's still Tuesday, but I do mean today, Wednesday, June 11th, when I speak about what's going to be happening later today. So I got a lot of fun things to talk to you about on this episode. Mike Macdonald spoke to us yesterday, as did Julian Love and Cooper Kupp. And I've got some sound that I want to play for you and react to some of that. I also got some footage. I'm going to play that first. Footage from practice just to give you, I got some really up close and personal, practice footage of the defensive linemen in particular and some other drills as well. And, I got the feedback that you guys like the sound when I play the videos with the sound and I talk over it. It doesn't I get cut off. So I'm not going to play the sound for you from these videos. Hopefully that is still okay. I think you guys want to see more than hear. But that's as much as I have control over that particular issue. All right. Last thing, as usual, before getting started, head over to hbtix.com, hbtix.com. Get tickets for your Seahawks. Go see them. Fill the stadium. Fill Lumen Field with Seahawks fans. Sell your tickets on hbtix.com. There are no service fees. I don't charge any fees. Now, if you choose to follow some of the instructions where you use some of the services I recommend in order to exchange your tickets and money, there are fees for that, but I don't get anything. All I want is for as many Seahawks fans to go to hbtix.com, register, find tickets, sell tickets, and make sure that we are getting tickets sold to Seahawks fans. That's the only place where you have control over who gets your seats, and to really, really know that these are Seahawks fans. I give you the tools and the instructions for how to figure that out and to make sure you're not getting scammed or any of that stuff. So would appreciate your support. All right, let's talk about Seahawks. Some of the footage from yesterday. I got some great pictures too. I'm wondering if I can mirror my phone and share. I think I could actually just probably bring up some of the pictures. I'm going to do that first. I'm making a change. I loved some of the pictures I got yesterday. It won't let me look at it because I don't have permission. I have permission to view my own pictures. What are you talking about? So let me pull up some of these pictures. It's a great picture of Quadzilla Byron Murphy, number 91 here, going through drills early and, looking fit, looking powerful, looking like Byron Murphy. You got Brandon Peely behind him, number 95. It's probably not a good way for me to do this without having to show each time I switch these. See, there's another cool pick. Oh, I love this pick of Boye Mafe. Let me show this one. So visor season is definitely happening at the VMAC. This is an up close look at Boye Mafe. I'd love to talk to. I'd love to interview and get a feel for how his offseason's been going. He had a really nice rush yesterday. It would have been a sack. He and Derek Hall, I think, have looked quite good. Let me see. I think there was one more I was going to maybe show on the picture side before I get to the moving pictures, the video. That might do it. All right. So let me get to the video stuff. We'll start with, what everyone always wants to see is just the quarterbacks. There's nothing special going on in this video. This is just the quarterbacks warming up. So you got Jalen Milroe, Drew Lock, Sam Darnold tossing the football. Your daily dose of seeing your rookie third round pick. Look how he is, throwing a beautiful ball. And Mr. Darnold and Mr. Lock doing it with him. Nothing big there. This was a little bit of a clip of just like one of the biggest things that I've really, it's hard to not notice is just the chemistry of the secondary. The secondary really has a vibe to it. And when it starts as soon really as Spoon comes onto the field. This is Spoon right here. And he's going to start dancing. Henrique's going to start dancing. Julian and Kobe are thick as thieves. They're always talking. That happens through the whole practice. So, you'll hear from some of the sound. I talk about how the communication is going on with that secondary, and Julian Love, shares some thoughts on that. Next. So this is where you get up close with the big boys. They were doing this drill where you'll see a strap around their waist. And this is big Jonathan Hankins going through the drill. And Justin Hines, the defensive line coach, really talking to them about getting their hips, and planking into this blocking pad. And so you start here with DeMarcus Lawrence, number 0. A lot of conversation about making sure you get your eyes up. You're going to see Byron Murphy do this drill, and he's going to have him do it again. He wants more hips. And so what he's going to do here is he's going to have Byron Murphy get closer and actually feel what it feels like to do it the way he wants it done. And then he's going to have him back up and actually do it full speed. He wants him getting leverage off the ground. That was a good rep from his perspective. And this is Brandon Peely. He loves that rep. Says he's planking all the way through there. Let him know who's boss. So Justin Hines, I think they're feeling good about Brandon Peely. I'm really curious to see when pads go on how he looks. All right, more from that drill. They had the edge rushers doing this as well. This is Boye Mafe doing it. He likes that one. This is Derek Hall. He loved that rep from Derek Hall. I mean, if Derek Hall has got a calling card, it is power. And so you're not surprised to see him excel in that. This is doing that same drill, except swimming to the outside. Oops. And that's my email, which you don't need to see. All right. If you want to see my email, you just got a view of it. Not that there's anything that exciting going on there. But that's awesome. So those are some sights, not some sounds from Seahawks practice yesterday. A little bit of an up close look at the defensive line and what they're doing. But the thing that I really wanted to, spend some time on with you guys is the sound from the press conference yesterday. And there was a lot of good stuff that came out of that from Mike Macdonald, from Julian Love, from Cooper Kupp. So let's talk about it. Let's listen to it together. And I will play these for you. I got a few clips in particular that I want to play. And I'll give you some of what stood out to me about those clips. So first things first, let's hear from our coach. Let's hear from Mike Macdonald. This is Mike Macdonald talking about, I asked him, I watch him kind of walking around practice as the head coach. I was kind of curious, like, how do you decide where you spend your time? And listen to what Coach Macdonald said about that. I thought it was interesting. Yeah. So let me pull that up here, and we can listen to it together.
It's completely random. Now, early in practice, I like to spend more time with the offense during more of like the individual periods. That's an opportunity for me to be with those guys. AD and I have been splitting up a good bit of the call-up periods, and he's doing a great job when I'm kind of managing the clock and working with Clint. So it's a great little operation we got going. Fun to work with. It varies by day, different than last year. I don't know. I don't remember what I was thinking last year, honestly.
So I'd asked him how, based on how he splits up his time, is it any different than last year? And you heard him at the end there say, like, I don't know. I mean, I think he does know what he did last year, but he clearly didn't want to go into it. I think one of the things that stood out to me about that answer was what he said about adding dirty. Excuse me while I take a sip of water. Yeah, so the fact that he's splitting the call-up periods, don't know exactly what that means. I have some guess, but I'm not gonna go too deep on that one. The point being, I think it is an indication of some delegation that wasn't there last year, and it also indicates Mike Macdonald is spending more time with the offense than I think he did a year ago, and partnering with Clint Kubiak on that. So I thought it was cool to kind of hear that from him. There was a lot of questions about Sam Darnold, and I'm going to start with Coach Macdonald talking about Sam and kind of the fire that he sees in him, and then I'm going to play you some Cooper Kupp sound after this. So let's first listen to Coach.
Like a killer?
Yeah, he's got some stuff to him. Yeah.
Did that surprise you?
No. We went against him. We felt it.
You change things up. How does he do the leadership? Does he get his own team set to do?
Talking about how does leadership?
Yeah, the thing you love about Sam is he's a dude, man. He's he's like one of the guys. There's a sense of he's one of the guys, so he's right there with him and all the things, but that's him. But there's some shit to him. Like he's like, don't mess with him. He's got that edge to him, that competitiveness, and the guys respect that. And he's him. He's not trying to be anybody else, and you got to respect that about him.
He hasn't played with.
I think there's some interesting pieces to that. Him saying there's some shit to him. 3 different people talked yesterday. They all said that. So that's a phrase that's making the rounds at the VMAC. But, Mike Macdonald talked about the fact that he obviously went against him last year. The Vikings and Sam Darnold beat the Seahawks in Seattle, and certainly made an impression on Mike Macdonald and the Seahawks when he did that. But you heard him talk about that he's one of the guys. And not all quarterbacks are. This is going to come across as Russell Wilson slander. I don't actually mean it to be. Russell Wilson is the best quarterback that's ever played for the Seahawks. I don't know that he would be one of the guys. And you don't have to be one of the guys to be a good, great MVP caliber quarterback. Like, you don't. But there's something that the Seahawks are at least exploring with Sam Darnold, which is having a guy that is one of the guys that does not really separate himself, hierarchically from the rest of the team or in other ways from the rest of the team. And yet they know that there's an edge to him, that he's got a little something. And we saw a glimpse of it. If you saw the show, the Rich Eisen interview that he did with Sam Darnold and the clips that I played from that, you got a little glimpse of his personality and some of the like stuff that he's got beyond that. I got to go from there to sound from Cooper Kupp talking about Sam Darnold. And this was talking about Sam Darnold's food wrecks. And Cooper Kupp was like, he invited me to dinner. And I'm just not sure I can really trust his food wreck. So this is Cooper Kupp. This is one of the funnier clips of the day from my perspective, talking about his quarterback and food.
You're early in the relationship building process with Sam. Are there any things about Sam that have surprised you getting to know him during this process?
Surprised me. Quarterbacks are usually pretty good golfers. I heard he's in a little bit of a slump right now on the golf course. Did he? That's nice of him to come up here, and it's confident. You like the confidence. I don't know. I mean, he kind of has a childish taste, palate. We went out to dinner and he's talking. I mean, I don't know. I don't trust him yet with the food recommendations or things like that. Which again, quarterbacks, I would have expected a little bit differently, but everyone has their own thing.
All right, well, it sounds like there's a story there.
With the palate thing.
Yeah.
I mean, he said he wanted to go to dinner. I was like, perfect. That's what sounds good. And I mean, it just the recommendations, kind of the way it came off was like he wanted to go get some, fries and chicken strips. And I was like, look, I have a 6-year-old. I can bring you his food. We can go. I'll go. I can bring that, and I'll go eat something good. So yeah, that was. But we ended up being fine. Like he ventured out and was like, okay. He was at least willing to try some stuff, and it seems like maybe I may have misread him. We'll see. Time will tell.
I love that from Cooper Kupp. So, as someone who's, got a couple of kids of my own, I admit I kind of have a pretty pedestrian palate. I'll take a chicken strip and fry bucket. I won't turn my nose up at that, but I get that maybe you want something a little bit more than that, especially if you got a 6-year-old at home and you're probably eating more dino nuggets than you ever wanted to. So, good that he and Sam are going out. Good that there's some perspective about, having some stuff to him, as Coach Macdonald said. Julian Love talked about it as well. I'm not going to play that clip, but that's something that was a theme that came up, and I think they've got Sam's back, because I think they know that there's going to be a lot of scrutiny for him coming into this season, and I think it's just good to see. So I had also, if you didn't hear the Bump and Stacy interview with Cooper Kupp, I recommend you do. I played some of it during Seahawks Saturday with Jeff Simmons this weekend. I thought it was great, maybe the best sound from last week. And one of the things that came out of that was that Cooper Kupp was up in Mike Macdonald's office, and that Mike Macdonald was geeking out on stuff. And so I asked Mike Macdonald, all right, so Cooper Kupp mentioned that he's in your office, geeking out on football stuff. Who are the guys that most commonly come into your office to geek out about football stuff? And Mike Macdonald's answer was great on this. Here's Mike Macdonald talking about who comes into his office most often.
He's like one of the guys. There's a sense of he's one of the guys.
Wrong clip.
Some stuff to
it. Let's try that again. Who comes into his office most often? This would be the right way to play that clip. If the internet's going to catch up to me. Fun. Do you guys like watching?
Well, Nick keeps showing up. I got to tell him, hey, man, door's closed, knock. No, but Nick's been up there a bunch. I mean, look, we want to. I'm proud of the atmosphere that we're creating, where guys are in and out of the offices, talking to coaches, not necessarily about football, but just what's going on. Feels a lot like we had going on at Michigan to a certain extent, and that speaks to the guys that are in the building, our coaches, the job they're doing, the relationships they're building. Anytime you're talking ball, especially with the guys, it doesn't get much better than that. And look, in Coops, he's gone against our defense, and he kind of knows how people attack us, and why wouldn't you run some ideas by him to see what he thinks? So I think we got some approval on that front.
I love that. I loved all of that. I loved that Macdonald, feels like they've established, he's proud of this culture that they've started to establish of kind of just open door, people coming in and out of offices, having conversations. Comparing it to, it's interesting. He didn't say Baltimore. He said Michigan, like collegiate, younger, just kind of more informal, I would assume, but also Jim Harbaugh. So who knows? But meaning Jim Harbaugh was the coach there, so he might not be that informal. But I think it is a really good thing if you've got a building where people feel comfortable walking into the head coach's office. When you've got a rookie, Nick Emmanwori, making like was the first person he mentioned, I thought that was really interesting. I'm going to have some Nick Emmanwori sound to play, not from him, but some other comments about Nick Emmanwori in a second. But the fact that Nick Emmanwori is a frequent visitor to the head coach's office on his own, not because he's being called to the principal's office, but because he wants to talk about something, to the point that the coach is joking about, knock sometimes. I think that's great. I think that's fantastic. And then the fact that, he kind of talked about at the end there that Cooper Kupp has gone against this defense and that he wanted to test some thoughts out with him to see whether he thought it might work. And that not only was that a good conversation, but he got some approval from Cooper Kupp that, yeah, it might be something that makes some sense. That's freaking awesome. Like, people talk about all the time, oh, we got this player picked up from the practice squad of this team that we're about to face, and the coach is going to pick his brain and they're going to come up with something special. Like, never happens. This is a situation where Cooper Kupp has been at the highest level with Sean McVay and Matt Stafford in that offense in LA, knows it inside and out, knows their tendencies, the way they think. And Mike Macdonald is actively seeking him out to test some ideas. Cool. Like, that's good news, because, by the way, Mike Macdonald already frustrated Sean McVay and Matt Stafford in the matchup that they had earlier in the year. Everyone's going to say, well, the Rams won and Matt Stafford had like 270 yards of passing and 2 touchdowns. Well, Matt Stafford had 200 yards passing and 1 touchdown and 1 pick before overtime. And he should have thrown another pick in overtime if Reek Woolen had stepped forward instead of sitting back. And that was 7 3-and-outs in regulation. That was more than Sean McVay had given up in any other game other than once in his entire career as a head coach. So I don't know. I like that. I like that a lot. And I want to play some sound from Cooper Kupp going back and forth with these guys, him talking about that conversation with Mike Macdonald and how much he likes kind of that part of the game, the kind of strategy part of the game. And here's what Cooper Kupp had to say about that.
Yeah, it might be my favorite thing. My favorite thing is just the X's and O's, the learning, the chess match that football is, and the innovation of guys like Mike who are pushing the boundaries defensively, that then challenge the offense. Like, you got to have answers. Like, no offensive coordinator wants to go out there and just say, hey, they got us. There's always, you got defenses are trying to find ways to beat you, and those conversations, those things with Mike, with the guys, like a lot of the guys on our coaching staff, it makes it a lot of fun to come into work. Like I said, I'm really enjoying being here, and the challenge that it presents.
How much are you in his? Oh, this is a question about how much he's in his office. Let's hear that answer.
How much am I in Mike's office? I don't have like a stop clock in there or anything. But quite a bit. I've picked up on some of his tendencies. He sits there with a baseball bat most of the time, like twirling the baseball bat around. He like sits crisscross applesauce on his chair. His feet are on the ground a lot of times, and so he's got some interesting habits. Yeah, so enough to learn some of that stuff.
And some of the
Cooper Kupp, man, he's going to be a blast. He's going to be a blast to have on the team this year for sure. Certainly has a little bit of that personality and a sense of humor. And look, does that like the thing that matters most? Is that something you pay $15 million a year for? No, but I do think it matters. I mean, to have some lightheartedness, to have some like joking around, to have some camaraderie that comes from that, and to have a guy that's super smart and loves football and talks about it constantly, works out constantly. Like, I mean, all the things that you want in a player outside of their performance, Cooper Kupp brings. And I think that's really, really cool. And stuff, honestly, I haven't followed him closely enough to know who he was in that regard. And it's been cool to get to know who he is a little bit in that way. So I mentioned I'd talk a little bit more about Nick Emmanwori. And so you heard that conversation about, Mike Macdonald joking that he's at his office all the time. This is Mike Macdonald talking about, all the different ways that they're kind of using Nick Emmanwori and what they're learning about him through that process.
Well, the first thing that pops is like the vets in the room are really leading him, and they're doing a great job of setting the expectation, bringing him along. He's understanding he's a rookie, but hey, man, like let's go. You're with us, but there's a certain standard that you're gonna have to abide by, and Nick has the humility to do that and to operate that way. So, but to his credit, we're giving him a lot. The bullets aren't live yet, so that's the next step for him, to show he can handle it in those types of situations. But he's going to be able to do that. I mean, he's really poised. He just understands ball, and I think again he really likes the process of doing football all the time. And Jeff's doing a great job with him, coaching him up all the time. So really pleased with Nick.
I loved that for a few different reasons. Like, this was a guy that, you even heard the Ravens, Eric DaCosta, in their front office and their scouts saying, like, there's no contest between Malachi Starks and Nick Emmanwori in terms of makeup, and that they just like Starks so much better, and that there was some stuff that came out in the Bob McGinn article about whether Nick Emmanwori is like a guy that you want on your side or not. And Mike Macdonald, he was very hesitant to, gas up any rookie last year. He was very hesitant to do that. And Tyrese Knight is the great example, who was really progressing faster than expected. But Mike Macdonald was always very cautious about, like, hey, he's still a rookie. He's still got a long way to go. I think we'll get that in training camp a little bit more from Mike Macdonald. But for him to be that effusive in his praise for Nick Emmanwori, and the fact that he knows ball, he loves the process, that is about as glowing of a evaluation as you can get from a football savant and football addict, which is what Mike Macdonald is. And for him to have that perspective about Nick Emmanwori as a rookie, I think is just, the guy already has historic athletic ability. And if you're going to tell me that he also loves the process of learning and loves football and wants to be in there and is taking all of this information, and you're going to tell me that he's already fitting in well with that, more veteran secondary, and that he is able to, kind of take it, and he's got humility, like, that's really, really promising. That is exciting as you can get in June for a guy that's never strapped on shoulder pads in an NFL practice yet, let alone a game. But I think that that's a really, really positive sign from a guy that tends to not be very giving in his positive praise about rookies. I want to play another clip from Julian Love talking about Nick Emmanwori and talking about how he fits into the room. And this is him talking about, kind of giving Nick a hard time and how that's going. You can see the smile on his face already.
Yeah, I mean, rookie in the DB room, you got to get some thick skin for sure. We all kind of go at it pretty heavy, and so he's doing a good job. I mean, he has, he's getting quick-witted, coming back at us a little bit more. But he fits in so naturally. I think you could tell they were intentional about like the personality types, and he fits in the personality of our DB room.
I know it's really early with him. He's only been practicing for a few weeks, but how do you see his skill set complementing
I think that's the number one word you'll hear is versatility. He can do a lot. He did a lot in college, and Kobe and I pride ourselves in doing a lot. And I think for us to be successful as like kind of a safety room, you have to. Like, we can be really good if we can come down the slot, we can play deep in the field, we can play in the box. I think we all do that well. Obviously, Nick, just his physical traits can make him really excel. But I think all of us really complement each other well in that regard.
I think that's cool to hear from Julian Love, and obviously talking about all the things that Nick Emmanwori can do. But I thought the thing that stuck out to me about that answer was they are really doing a good job of finding the right personalities to put in the room. That was a really big compliment to John Schneider and his scouting department and the personnel department, because they put a lot of time into evaluating who the player is. And that Nick Emmanwori was one of the guys that, like I said, there were question marks. And so now that's another point of validation. Julian Love is as good of a guy as you can find, hard worker, talented, now one of the best safeties in the NFL. If he's telling you that the rookie, after, basically a month of getting to know the guy, is a good personality fit for that locker room, it's another like glowing green flag about a really important player that the Seahawks spent some pretty important draft capital to add to the roster. So loved that. Love that from Julian Love. A couple more bits of sound I'm going to play. So I asked Julian Love, there's so many things that are the same about the Seahawks defense. You got mostly the same players. You've got the same coaches. So with all that, like, what's different? What's different this year? That was my question for Julian Love. Here's what he said when I asked that. Be different.
I think it's our launching point. I think last year, obviously, there's so much to figure out, and it takes a while. We just started on a whole kind of different, level, and we just know how each other works. I think, the camaraderie and the chemistry is just heightened, and so now that kind of standard is like high from the jump.
How's Emmanwori?
I think that that's right, and I think that that's not surprising, that the fact that they just have more familiarity with each other and with this system. So I think that's good. But also just that I want to play this clip where I asked him about, when I saw Spoon and you guys looking at the replay screen during practice, kind of calling out, different routes that you were seeing, what was going on there. And listen to Julian Love's answer about that. How you guys play together?
It's a mixture. I think the accountability is so high that we're going to be clear cut about, like, where were you on this? When receiver does this is what I need from you. And it's just talking ball. It might sound kind of crazy if you guys are here never, if you're over there hearing us, if you're hearing Spoon ever. But we all speak differently, but are talking the same language, if that makes sense. And so that's all it is. And I love the boards out there, because then you get to see what happened that previous play in real time, because we're trying to be the best. And it's quick when you get quick feedback out there. And so that's all it is. And DBs do it at a high level, I think. We really talk a lot out there.
There's another clip I'm not going to play, but I probably could, where Julian Love talked about one of the differences this year, like it's so competitive in the defensive room that it's not even about being the best defense. It's about which group is the best within the defense. The secondary wants to be better than the defensive line, better than the linebackers. And, they talk about who's the tip of the spear after each practice, which part of the defense is actually leading the charge. And I think that's all positive, right? That's all positive. And we're in June. Like, this is when these things are it's easy to say these things. There's no opposition to really test any of that. But we've seen this defense against good opposition and playing pretty well. So, all this stuff tracks largely. The last thing I'm going to play is I did ask Julian Love, hey, you guys were a really good defense last year, but there are some games, especially against the Packers and the Vikings, where you didn't really play up to your standard, and like, how are you going to avoid that, happening again this year? And here's what he said this year.
Yeah, I think one, obviously just stay healthy, kind of make sure we sustain it, and just don't get bogged down with kind of the detailed work. At that point in the season, whatever it was, November, December, like you can start to float a little bit. And so I think coming into this offseason, we identified some of those games where we feel like, man, like what were we? It wasn't clean enough, and just detail it. Just detail out the work. I think the DB coach, Jeff Howard, Carl Scott, they've been getting after in terms of details, and like those games are games that you see a lot more of clips on, just because it just wasn't up to kind of the standard that we were setting. And so now it's sustaining. That's the hard part. It's easy kind of to do it for a few games, but the best defenses in the league over NFL history have been consistent from start to finish.
I thought it was interesting that Julian mentioned that the coaches are showing those games like most often, like it's a subtle, easy way for the coaching staff to make a point of, hey, like this wasn't good enough. And it just also happened to be games that you really needed to win. And they were games at home. And if you really want to consider yourself one of the best defenses in the NFL, teams that come into Lumen Field should fear you. They should be cowering at the thought of having to face the noise and to face that defense. And too often last year in a really big game, in a big moment, whether it's Buffalo or, Green Bay or Minnesota, ultimately the defense didn't do enough. And yes, the offense had its own problems. I'm not going to say that it was all the defense, but if you're a defensive head coach and you've got the majority of your investment, free agency and draft the last few years before this year were all defensive or like primarily defense, like that group has to be the one that leads against the best team. That has to be the group that sets the standard. And they didn't do it often enough. So, it's good to know that they hear it. And honestly, it's part of the reason I asked the question, because I want to know that that's on their minds and that they're going to, from week one on, like that's going to be a question I'm going to ask as we get closer, is like there's not going to be a ramp up period. They need to be great from week one on, because that game against the 49ers, the first week of the season, is going to set an absolute standard for the rest of the season. It is going to set a course for the season, and they can't afford to come out and be flat or be the worst, in the moment, more inferior unit when facing Kyle Shanahan and a 49ers team that's going to be desperate to prove to everybody else that they are still the big bad bullies. So good stuff there. Those are all the sound. Hopefully you enjoyed all that sound from Coach Macdonald, Julian Love, Cooper Kupp, all good stuff. Enjoyed some of the video from practice. I will obviously have more for you later today. If you haven't already given the show a like and click subscribe, please do. We're up over 20,000 subscribers, on our way to many, many more. Would love to add you to the community. And also go to patreon.com/hawkblogger, sign up, get instant access to ad-free audio. If you don't want to hear the ads, patreon.com/hawkblogger. That's where you get ad-free audio that you can listen to on any podcast platform. You'll get your own little private link. You also get access to the Discord channel. And by the way, there is still room in the Ring of Honor. We are getting closer. The first weekend of the season, the first Friday before the 49ers game, I will be hosting our annual Ring of Honor dinner at Daniel's Broiler. It'll be great. It was so much fun last year. Evan will be here. I think Dana might be here. Hopefully Nathan. We'll see who else will be in town for that game. There's still room. If you want to join the Ring of Honor, there's a few more spots available. Would love to have you. And why not get a great steak dinner and support this show and this channel and all the stuff we're trying to do. And if you didn't hear it at the beginning, go to hbtix.com, hbtix.com, sign up for free, get access to the only place where you can verify that you are either buying a ticket from a Seahawks fan or selling a ticket to a Seahawks fan, so that we can make sure that Lumen Field remains the best home field advantage in the NFL. That's not what it was last year. And I think this is an attempt by all of us to take control back of that problem. And the best way to do that is, if you're going to sell a ticket, do it through HB Ticks. And that will make sure that you are selling it to a Seahawks fan. If you just list it on Ticketmaster, you just list it elsewhere, whoever buys it, and generally that's going to be opposing fans who are traveling to the game, they're going to fill the seat. So list it on HB Ticks, find a Seahawks fan. If you want to still sell it through Ticketmaster, fine, you can coordinate that with the fan you found, but at least make sure that you are going to sell it to a Seahawks fan, like a Seahawks fan. Let's make sure that the right jerseys are in those seats. All right, everybody, that'll do it for me. Hopefully I'm shooting a good round right now. Probably not, knowing my golf game, but I will be back tomorrow, and Real Hawk Talk will be Thursday night. So it will not be tonight on its normal Wednesday hour. It will be Thursday night at 6 p.m. Evan Hill will be on the show. I believe Dana O'Gorman as well. And we'll have some fun doing that. So that'll come tomorrow, Thursday night. All right, everybody. Until I see you next, I am Brian Emhauser. This has been another episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings. Take care, y'all.